I got every word perfectly weighted on a thin piece of paper. Would it make any difference?
Hello and welcome to this video. Today's video is going to be packed with value to help strengthen and empower you in your ministry of serving your family. Today I have a kitchen day. I'm going to show you guys the process along with a few short tips why I like to have a kitchen day. And as I work, I am going to be answering subscriber questions that came in after my Q&A video was filmed. The questions I'm answering have to do with managing the home and keeping up with homemaking life, motherhood, cleaning up after the kids and husbands. And for the devotional, we're going to talk about the Titus 2 woman, and I'm going to give a few encouraging scriptures. We're also going to talk a little bit about the mental load on women and mothers these days. Really quick though, you guys, look at my shirt. I met a Proverbs 31 homeschool mama here through my channel. Her name is Kate, and she has a little business making these really special t-shirts that are super high quality. She whipped up some custom shirts for me. I've got this one and one that says Homestead Mama. I love this one that says Do All Things with Love. Being a Titus 2 woman, it can be really rough some days, and this shirt reminds me to allow this job to make me better instead of bitter. I just love it. Please go visit her Etsy store. And by the way, her shirts come in a large variety of colors. She's got some super cute ones. In this video, I'm going to go through and answer subscriber questions. But first, I'm going to speed through the things I like to get done on kitchen day and a couple products and tools I use to help whip this job into shape. When I have a kitchen day, I like to try to go through and clean out the refrigerators. Ever so often, I like to get to the freezers as well. I don't get to them as often as I'd like. I've got a baking bin here, flour and yeast. This is a lunch bin with all kinds of soups and fast and easy lunches. And this is the breakfast bin with different breakfast foods in here. Another thing that I like to do on kitchen day is I like to clean and disinfect and then re-oil and mineralize all of my wooden pieces like spoons and cutting boards. I like to disinfect the surfaces, all surfaces. We do that on a regular basis, of course, pretty much daily, but I like to do that on kitchen day just to really deep clean things. I like to get an inventory of food and make new lists if there are things we're running out of, and I like to refill all of the jars and canisters. I like to get the oven cleaned out. I also clean the dishwasher. A lot of people forget about their dishwasher. Your dishwasher needs to be cleaned from time to time. So if you read the package ingredients on dishwasher cleaner, it's usually just citric acid. So I make my own citric acid dishwasher cleaner, and it works marvelously. I like to disinfect and clean out the sink completely. I like to tidy out the drawers. When you have a family kitchen, things can get pretty cluttered pretty quickly. And so the drawers get messy and they need to be re-tidied so that things are able to be found. Hey kids, I need you to come to the kitchen for a minute. There's some things I found in the wrong places and I want to remind you guys where they go. These have been missing for a while. Some of these things have been missing for about a month, like this. We were looking for this about a week ago. Daddy and I were. In the morning, he needed it for his soup. These go with the thermoses. Could we keep them with the thermoses, please, so they're easier to find? And this we were all looking for about 2 weeks ago. Remember that? We couldn't find it. It was in the wrong place. These go with the cups. Just when you get them out, leave them with the cups and just leave the lid open, so they can continue to air out, okay? Something I've had to learn through the years is that a woman, she could be like a 1950s housewife, or she can be a homeschool mom, but she can't be both. I like to wash the floors, and we have rugs in our kitchen, which helps to kind of keep down on all of the spills tracking throughout the house. So the rugs need to be washed on a fairly consistent basis. I like to tidy the pantry if I have time. I like to reorganize our containers basket. So I have this big, huge basket that I love, 4 containers We wipe down base cabinets, and of course, I like to thoroughly disinfect and wipe down the handles. These are just a few of the things. This is something that I like to do as often as I'm able, at least twice a month. It would be nice if I could get to this once a week, and I do try for that once a week, but I'm not always able to because of the season of life that I'm in. All right, let's jump into the subscriber questions. The first question is by Emma from Australia. If you are watching, hello Emma. All right, like me, Emma's on the perfectionist side. Before having a child, she wrote that her house was quite orderly. She said she's learning to let go and allow mess and disorder as her baby is small. And she's prioritizing everyone's sleep and quality time together, which I want to break right here and say Emma is making a very good choice. She writes, however, that she has an ADHD husband whom she ends up cleaning up and tidying up a lot after, and who is rather disorganized. She wants to know if I have any tips for how to communicate with him about it. She says she doesn't expect perfection from him, just mindfulness really. And she would also like some tips to help him learn to become more tidy and organized. That will work. I do think I can help with this since I have ADHD as well. But we also have a similar question from Danielle. She feels like it's impossible to keep the home clean because her husband, and she doesn't have kids yet. She's asking if I personally have a routine, schedule, a process that helps me stay on top of things. And she's asking for suggestions for ways to store man toys. I'm going to include that later on in this video, my solutions for that, as well as storing children's toys. All right, we also have Emily. She wants to know if my kids have chores and if we use a chore chart. There's also a question from Mahumaza asking how I keep intimacy vibrant and regular with all the competing calls on my time and energy. And I'm including this in this video. You'll see why as I go on. I have a question from Chris. She is actually a well-seasoned mom of many, and she's asking what my hardest season of motherhood is. Lastly, there was one question that really pulled my heartstrings, and it was from Allison. I could really resonate with her question where she asked me if I ever feel like there's something wrong with me because there isn't enough of me to go around. She shared something that I know a lot of mothers deal with, a feeling like if she spends time with the kids, emotional or social needs, that everything else seems to get messy. She said she feels like she's running her body into the ground, staying up too late to wash clothes, clean the kitchen, and do all the things, including trying to do devotions. She mentioned feeling like important areas like marriage were feeling neglected, and she feels on edge by 4:30 at the end of the day. She wants to rest on Sunday. She's also working a job though. She feels like there just isn't enough of her to go around. I'm going to go and do my best to answer all of these questions and share discoveries that I have made that help me, that may answer these questions. Not everything may be of use to you as each family is so unique, but hopefully there's going to be a few things along the way that you can take away. First, I want to say, honestly, mamas, I struggle with managing all the things just like the rest of you do. I often feel like there isn't enough of me to go around. I don't necessarily run this channel to show you guys how successful I am at managing a home and homeschooling. I am more or less running it to let others know they are not alone. But there are some things that I have found along the way that do make a difference, a big difference. And of course, I'm always looking for ways to improve. So one of the things that I have found that helps so much for us is having systems or routines, if you prefer calling it that. I found that one has to be flexible with these though, because as seasons change throughout the year and as more children are born into the family, also as you have children getting older, systems need to grow and adapt. I found that for my family, we need more than one thing. We need like 5 or 6 different things. We need planners, we need a calendar, we need a schedule posted on the fridge, and also we need that same schedule on our Alexa app. We need checklists and chore cards. Standing alone, each one of these won't work. They're not enough. So we need all of them working together. This sounds like a lot, but it's actually quite simple, and I'm going to just kind of go through that now. We have the planners for things that change daily. I highly recommend Undated for most women because as a homemaker, you may have times where half the planner is unused if it's dated because some days are more full than others. If you use Undated, there will be no wasted pages though. You can have a large family planner or you can have individual planners, one for each of the older kids. There is a lot of talk about the mental load on mothers, and I found that having a brain dump, so to speak, and writing everything in the planner helps me tremendously. It's also nice because it helps me visually see what I got done instead of always feeling like I didn't get enough done. And it helps me not to overdo some days. But a planner is not enough just on its own. Here's where the schedule comes in. The schedule has the things that we like to keep at certain times of the day, and it has the things that do not change daily. It has when the wake-up time is, when breakfast is, and when lunch and dinner should be. It also has reminders to do dishes and laundry, and homeschooling for those of us that are doing that. It's got meal planning and prep, things that must be done daily that don't change. It would be time wasting and tediously redundant to have to write these in a planner every single day. Also, it's nice to have this posted in a central place where nobody can deny seeing it. The times are not strict. I have times on ours, but they're not strict. As a large family with a little farm, the times are when we try to do certain things. The times are also there for training for the kids to start practicing executive functioning skills since kids don't have those yet, but are going to need them for future success in life. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But the times are also there to help them understand that if they follow the set times, it makes for a rewarding afternoon with more free time. If all you have are small children, I do not recommend set times, especially if there is a newborn in the mix. I went through 13 years of having a newborn and small baby and toddlers in our home because we have 6 children spanned over 13 years. So if you have only small children, what you can do is you can have what is called a routine or a rhythm, where you know certain activities will be done before noon, certain ones after 12, and certain ones done after 3. Also, you've got the bedtime routine. FYI, raise your hand if you have experienced the dreaded witching hour. Oh my goodness, the witching hour with those little babies. Okay, if you don't know what that is, it's the evening time when small babies and children become really cranky and whiny and needy and they need attention and, you know, they need to be cuddled. And it's usually right when you're trying to make dinner. After my 3rd child was born, I noted the hours that this was happening, and I learned to start dinner as early as 3:30 to avoid it. What a difference that made. Okay, that was just a freebie side note. Anyways, having routines like this make all the difference in the world. Let's move on to the next thing that makes a difference. Chores. Yes, my kids have chores. Years ago, I found a system that worked for our family, and the company making the system went out of business. So I created my own with watercolors, and I created it to sell. It's a digital download you can find in my Etsy store. You just download these cards, print them off, select the chores you want to assign. There are 39 to pick and choose from, by the way. I'm from Generation X, and I know the previous generation kind of prided themselves in not having their kids do chores, and even went so far as to say kids shouldn't have chores. Well, we all know how that worked out. People in non-homeschool small families and that don't have farms or homesteads might be able to get by with doing everything for their kids, cleaning their rooms, doing everybody's laundry, all the dishes, unless of course, you know, they're of the Montessorian mindset, which by the way, I'm definitely a proponent of. The more kids a mom has though, the less time she's going to have for doing all the things for everybody. Nowadays, therapists agree too that kids actually need age-appropriate chores for a variety of positive developmental reasons, and so they don't grow up to become entitled. Personally, I'm really glad my parents were rebels of their generation and had me do chores. I learned to work, I learned to love work, and I learned to take pride in my work, and I'm thankful for this. So I've created this system, and this chore card system I developed comes with a reward system. You can pick the rewards. This chore card system is non-overwhelming, so it even works for kids with ADHD. My chore cards are extra special though, since I have been through therapy and I know the value of learning mindfulness. I'm trying to teach my kids good mental and physical health habits too. So my chore cards even include some mindfulness reminders and good habit training activities like personal hygiene, gratitude reminders, prayer time, and more. The system is really good for training children and helping kids become more accountable and independent. If you are opposed to raising entitled children, these should help. Eventually my kids memorize the cards and don't even have to look at them. Sometimes they will forget though, and I have to remind them to go look at the chore cards for a few days if I see they're forgetting to do something. We also have checklists posted in corresponding places. For example, we have 3 bathrooms and they have checklists. 2 of the bathrooms are the kids, so I'm teaching the older kids how to clean their bathrooms. And we have checklists to help them. They won't remember all of the things without the checklist. We have a kitchen checklist, and the list is on chore cards as well. So the children can pick and they can choose which way they prefer to get the job done. They can either just look at the checklist or they can look at the little chore cards. Having checklists though means important things are not forgotten. And if they are, all I have to do is say, look at the list or the cards again, please. Since we homeschool, I have checklists for the kids' subjects as well. Lists and checklists, they're great. They help me drastically to lighten the mental load. Again, these are great for training purposes as well. Eventually, the kids get the details of dish duty and cleaning up after themselves memorized. One of the cards I have is called Power Pickup Time. This is groundbreaking, friends. Once or twice a day, we go through together and spend about 10 minutes cleaning up our messes and tidying up after ourselves. It doesn't take long with everyone working together. The kids are learning to put their toys and clothes away, and that life is better when you don't have to hunt for what you need or want. On that note, I have a child training tip for you here. I don't know what it is with kids. A lot of times they will, create this mess and then have some kind of an inability to see it. So you go in and say, please pick up after yourself. And it's even in their bedroom. Have you ever sent a kid to clean their room and they go in there and they spend like 3 hours and you go in to check on them and they've got nothing done, nothing at all. And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to pick up. It's overwhelmed. People can get overwhelmed, and when they get overwhelmed, especially children, they just don't see. So you might have to start really, really small. And so with my kids, what I do is sometimes I won't tell them, go clean your room. I do with the older kids, of course. The younger ones though, I'll say, go to your room, pick up all the Legos. So they go to the room, they pick up all the Legos. They come back. I say, okay, now go pick up the clothes. Actually, I might start with the clothes. It would make more sense. So then they pick up the clothes, and in the process, they find more Legos, of course. But then they come back, and they're like, I'm done. Okay, now pick up the books. One thing at a time. That is so helpful for children, and it's far less overwhelming than saying, go pick up your room. So all of these things, the chore cards, the schedule on the fridge, and the planners do correspond with each other. For example, the schedule on the fridge is also on the Alexa for the more auditory kids and to help everybody with reminders, even the grown-ups. Both of these things remind the kids a couple times a day to do their chores. For example, it reminds them to do the morning chores, and then in the afternoon, there's the afternoon chore cards. We also have a system, though, where we have specific additional activities on specific days. I have lists of what needs to be done written in the beginning of our main family planner. Recently, several of my large family mama subscribers gave me the idea to have the older kids do their own laundry and have a laundry day. And I kind of feel silly for not having thought of this sooner. So I taught the older kids how to do their laundry, and they have a laundry day of the week. It took about a month for them to get the hang of it, but this week I noticed my 18-year-old and my 15-year-old, and sometimes even the 10-year-old, will start and finish their laundry without any prompting at all. It's amazing. Friday and Saturday is cleaning day. We prefer spreading it over 2 days, so if we did all of our cleaning for the whole house in one day, it would be way too long of a day. We do have maintenance days that we do daily that take just a few minutes. I have learned that with kids, though, it works best to all work in the same spaces at the same time. I find that if we are all working all over the house, it's more than likely that some of the kids are goofing off and jobs aren't getting done, depending on which kids it is. I do have one kid that works best alone. Others that don't work at all if they're alone. The ADHD kids definitely don't work well alone, and they need me around or kind of in the local vicinity, or else cleanup time becomes party time. The benefits of doing some things like cleaning day with the kids is you can train them how to clean properly, and you can teach them how to have fun when they work, because that is really important. The work time becomes quality time and special time. Another thing in our routines is I love cooking. I love fine dining. I've loved it for years and years and years. I want my children to learn how to cook, and not just basic stuff, but I want them to have some real cooking skills. So when they go to make a meal that's fancier for somebody, someday they can. And I also want them to eat well their whole lives. So for the older kids, on one evening a week, I have one of them come into the kitchen and cook for at least 15 minutes with me. And we don't always get to this, but it is the goal. I try to teach them fun cooking skills. It works especially well if you teach the kids how to make their favorite dishes. So I've got an 18-year-old. He loves eggs Benedict, and he can make the best hollandaise sauce by himself without even splitting it. And my 15-year-old, she makes a really mean pasta dish, a couple of them actually. She's got this gourmet mac and cheese that's totally elevated with cream cheese and spices. My point is, remember, end goal is to produce kids that are capable. So although they're children now, they won't always be. By having them do chores and teaching them how to succeed in life, you're setting them up with good habits that will benefit them for the rest of their life. Something I learned a couple years ago when I was going through therapy was that children, because I was exasperated one day, I was like, why do I have to keep telling my kids to do the same things every single day? And the counselor explained to me the science behind it, and she said kids need a lot of reminders. That's normal. They don't have the frontal part of their brain, I think is what it was. It's not developed completely until they're 25. This is why they need so many reminders. This is why you'll teach them something and then have to reteach it a few times before it's really sink in. Also, their executive functioning skills aren't really there until they're 25 either. I find that really helpful to remember, and it helps me to remember to be more gracious and patient with my kids. Part of our job as mothers is to teach our children life skills and good habits, not necessarily to do every single little thing for them. If we do that, they're going to end up married someday thinking that it's not their job to clean up after themselves. They're going to grow up being perfectly happy to have somebody else constantly cleaning up after them. And that's just not a recipe for good relationships. So one of my subscribers was asking particularly about husbands as well. How do you help your husbands not destroy the house? This particular subscriber said she felt like it was almost impossible to keep things clean. And she didn't even have kids yet. It was mainly because of her husband. And here's where I have to be entirely honest with you guys. I'm one of those people who leaves quite awake whenever I'm doing a project. And I can't stand it for very long. Like the mess drives me nuts and I have to go in and totally reorganize it. So I like having neat organized areas, but I have to work overtime because I'm not like an overly tidy, neat person naturally. So I have to clean up after myself a lot. I read a book years ago. Actually, I didn't even read the whole book. I read part of the book. It was really good. I think it was called How to Have a House That Cleans Itself. And one of the most amazing tips that I got out of that book that helped me, it helped my kids, it helped my husband, was to simply pay attention to the flow of how things went naturally. So if you find that shoes are piling up by the door, which if you've got kids and you don't have that problem, you are like extra tremendously blessed. We have that problem where shoes just kind of collect at the door. So what helps is to have a place for the shoes right at the door. Instead of making people like take their shoes off and go take them to a room somewhere, it just works better to have a place for the shoes to go by the door. And that's really hard when you're living in small spaces. I've been there, done that for years and years and years on end. But even so, it helps to have like a hutch by the door or something that shoes can go in. Husbands that are bringing things home like little tools and little change and little like screws and nuts and bolts that you have no idea what they're for. Okay, so for things like that, again, where does he normally pile them? Where do they normally collect? Put a basket there. He'll probably put them beside the basket, but you can go along afterwards and put them in the basket for him. I have to do that with my husband. I consistently have to remind my husband, babe, I got you this basket, please use it. And he's like, oh yeah. But if you will create, like, pay attention to where they normally put things and put a basket or something there to organize or corral whatever it is that's being stockpiled there. Okay, so if he's taking his socks off, or the kids are taking their socks off in a certain place, maybe you need a little hamper in your living room if that's where it's happening. There is nothing wrong with having a little small hamper in rooms that you would not typically put one if it's going to be convenient for the whole family there. As far as storing the kids' things and the husband's things, I like to use bins for this, and you can actually rotate the bins. So like with kids' toys, you can rotate the certain things. If they have too many toys, you can put 3/4 of them into bins, put them into storage, and then rotate them. There are times I've done this with some of my husband's things too that he didn't seem to be using, and they never ended up being missed. Sometimes they did, which is why it was nice to have them in the storage or in the bins. But a lot of times things weren't even missed. So I would say utilize bins if you have it feels like too much stuff, but you're afraid to get rid of it. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about systems. Every week I have a cooking day if I wasn't able to make extra during regular meal prep time. Usually, that's the goal. I make double of a meal and put the second dish in the fridge to make later that week. That means I don't have to do as much cooking all the time, but sometimes I do have to take a meal prep day and have like a baking day and a vegetable prep day. And I find it's a good idea to do that every week, especially after a big grocery haul. And maybe it's not going to take a whole day to do it. Maybe it's just going to take a few hours, but it's a good idea to do that at least once a week, I find. Every other week, I have a big kitchen day, which is what today is. Every other week, my goal is to have an office day. Ideally, these would be done weekly. But on that note, and speaking of seasons, I want to answer the mama that asked me what the hardest season of motherhood has been for me. I would have to say there were two. The first one is definitely the seasons with sleep deprivation after having a newborn. That was one of the hardest. And the second one is actually the season I am in right now with children in ages ranging adult down to age 4. Okay, if you're new here, I have 6 kids and I homeschool, plus I have a homestead. So I have kids in high school, middle school, and elementary. This season has definitely left me feeling very stretched, and sometimes left me feeling like a hot mess when a spinning plate crashes to the floor. But I have some techniques that I have learned that do make a difference. When I was in therapy, I was blessed to have counselors that both had large families. One of them, like me, even had kids ranging from teen to tot. And so I'm going to share some things from my large family mom therapists that they shared with me and that they used that helped them. These should help you regardless of the size of your family. They definitely help me. If you are feeling spread thin, like you're chasing your tail, and like you're still not getting anywhere, it's time to put the brakes on. Hit the pause button. It's best to do it before you make yourself sick, which can happen if you keep running on fumes. Sometimes you have to do this more than once. Last winter, I had to do it again, even though I already did it a couple years ago. When you do this, you need to stop and evaluate what is important to you in life. What are your goals? There are even online quizzes that you can take that can help you narrow this down and define your values and what is important to you in life if you've never really done this. For me, it's pretty simple: God and family. But there are a lot of aspects to these two things that do make it a bit more complex. So from there, once you have your priorities and your goals in life, Make a list of what that looks like. What are the priorities that fall under those categories? And I'll just go into a little bit of example for you. I put food on my list. My family will die if I don't feed them. Okay, that's extreme, I know. They maybe just might not eat well and therefore won't be as healthy. So my husband, for example, he's an easy keeper. Never bothers me to make him food ever. He will and has started losing way too much weight at times because he'll just go hungry. So I've learned if I don't make his lunches and put them in easy to grab and go containers like I'm doing with this Chipotle egg salad. By the way, Chipotle egg salad, you gotta try it. It's awesome. Just put Chipotle peppers in your regular egg salad recipe. But if I don't make easy grab and go lunches for him, and if I don't create a shelf for him in the fridge that is easy access so he doesn't have to hunt for his food, he'll just go hungry and he'll get really unhealthy. I love him and I want to keep him, so I need to do this for him. Priority. Same with the kids. They won't eat healthy. They'll just snack if I don't make them good, healthy meals. Again, priority. So keeping the kitchen in working order and the fridges up falls within that priority category. My family is a priority and their needs are a priority. Since education is required by God and state, my children's education is a priority. I strongly believe in homeschooling, so I homeschool, and this is a priority. My marriage is a priority. If my husband and I are not strong together, then every aspect of my life suffers. We are each other's best friends, and when we're not getting along, I'm not even half of what I normally am. And it's hard to even get through the day for both of us when we're not getting along. We are like shell parents. If we're fighting, we're like there covering all the basic needs for the kids and everybody, but inside we're empty. So within that family priority, marriage is major. And so we make time for each other weekly. Weekends are our time that we can always count on. And we made this a habit early on to spend quality time together on weekends. Now there are weekends where we're slammed and we don't get as much time together. But it's always the goal to spend time together. And so 85% of the time, I want to say it happens and we meet that goal. The second thing I learned from one of my therapists helped me to learn to stop chasing my tail so much, to relax a little bit more, and in the end, actually become more productive. Okay, it's not groundbreaking and earth-shattering. It's pretty simple, actually. It was self-care. If you were working a job anywhere, a paying job, you'd have breaks. It's a legal requirement to give employees breaks. When you're a homemaker, though, you literally live where you work. You never get breaks. So you have to take them. You have to create them. I have ADHD, and people with it often become mentally and physically just out of steam by around 2 o'clock, give or take an hour. I found that if I plop down for even just 20 minutes, I recharge. It gives my adrenals time to just recoup. And I have the energy to finish the day with more power. I love doing my devotions at this time. I don't believe, and I hope you don't either, that morning is the only time that is appropriate for devotions. I know there's a lot of hype about that. Listen, quality is what matters most, not the time of day you do them. Do them when you're going to get the most out of them. So for me, it's when I'm resting at that 2 o'clock hour. During that rest time, I also have the kids rest with a book. Again, I am trying to teach my kids healthy habits and how to rest when they need to, and how to recognize when they need to, and I'm trying to teach them the value of resting when they need it. Once a day, a rest time, it is so powerful, mamas. It can help you see yourself and what you're getting done daily in a completely different light, and it will make you and can make you more productive. I'll say that when it comes to self-care like this, though, it took me a few months to even learn what self-care was. But I learned that when I took breaks, when I took my vitamins, when I drank enough water, and when I drank my little teas, I love tea, and when I took some time to breathe and do those devotions, I became more productive. I can't take every Sunday off, but I try to take as many off for this reason. If I rest on Sunday, I always have a better week ahead and usually much, much more productive. All right, I might get some unsubscribers for saying this. Please stick around to the end of the video if this does just settle you or unsettle you. And please give me some grace in this, but I don't go to church at this point in time. It leaves me feeling more drained. Instead, I spend the time with my family. I spend quality time strengthening my marriage with my husband, and I rest, like it says to do in the Bible. And my husband and I do home church with our kids, so as not to forsake the assembling together, as also commanded in Scripture. Sunday's goal for us is to rest and celebrate our time as a family because, things aren't going to be this way forever. We already have one child that is an adult, and we've only got one shot at this. So Sundays are very special days that we spend with each other. Another thing I learned within the self-care process, and this is for women only, check out the app called My Flow. Wow, groundbreaking. This app helps you track your cycles, and it teaches you which weeks within your cycle that your brain is best for certain tasks. It is amazing, you guys. It has helped me so much. It will give you reminders for what foods to eat during specific weeks of your cycle. It will let you know what's happening in your body, what to expect from your body, what to expect from your brain at that certain time. It helps you know when it's going to be the best times for focusing on certain things during different weeks of your cycle. The next thing that I learned from my therapist, though, was called a leapfrog list. It took me a good year to put this into practice, but it's awesome. So once you have your main priorities, you have all the other things. Put the other things that don't have to be done today on sticky notes. If you don't get to them today, it's okay. If you do get to them today, great. But if not, just pop that sticky note onto tomorrow. Just keep moving it until you can fit it in. Learning to do this helped me so much. So now I've adapted this for my needs. I write down everything needing to be done on Monday or Tuesday, and I just refer to that list through the week and write down what I'd like to tackle that day. If I get to it, great. If not, great. The priorities are met though, and again, food and education are examples of my two top priorities. Once again, this took me a year to learn to do. Here's a funny true story though, to give you a very mild example. You know how sometimes you feel like you got to clean something every time it gets dirty, like the floors or I don't know. Let me just give you this example. I remember when I only had a small family with just 2 and 3 children. And I would go to large family homes that had many children, many little children. I remember thinking to myself that maybe the moms didn't know how to clean their floors. I remember helping one of my dearest big family mom friends out one time, and I was washing her floors, and I just sincerely thought nobody taught her how to clean. Oh my Lord. Skip ahead, and now I just wonder how many people think this about me. The floors can be cleaned one day, and by evening you would just never know because of all the traffic coming through. The more kids you have, the faster things get really messy really quickly. Think of public places like restaurants and stores with a lot of traffic. For those of us that are stay-at-home moms or homeschool moms, our homes get a lot of traffic. They need routines. Instead of chasing all the fires, prioritize though, and know that the routine time for a specific thing will come around, but that if it doesn't, you've got that leapfrog list. You can't clean the floor every time it gets dirty and do all the things every time they demand your attention. But if you have the routine, you know it will come around, and if you don't have time for it, the leapfrog list is there and it will assure that things get done eventually. And eventually, with practice, you will learn to rest in this. Having the priorities on the forefront of your mind, it helps. With all of your routines and systems, again, you need a quiet time, a break, a pause to develop all of these. Once you develop them though, they will need to be and remain flexible. They're going to need to be a little bit fluid and adjustable, but they will help. If you have a routine and you fall off of it, it can take time to get back on it. I have found that depending on what it is, if we are off of a schedule or a routine for a week, it can take a week to get back onto it. This is part of why I like to do year-round homeschooling and stick to the routines as well as I can and take breaks when we need. It makes it easier to jump back on when we do take breaks if we have those routines established. The more established you get with your schedule and your routines, though, the easier it does get to jump back on. Mondays, Sorry, they're always tricky though. I want to share something I did and do from time to time that makes a difference. The first time that I did this, it was probably around maybe 10 years ago. We were still living in the Midwest, and I made a list of all of the things that needed my time every day. Next to it, I wrote down how long each one of those activities took. So if you've got a new baby, nursing a baby, that can take like anywhere from 3 to 4 or sometimes even more hours a day, taking care of that baby, nursing, changing diapers. So you take the 12 hours you have during the day, or the 14. There's been many seasons where I worked up to 17 and 18 hours a day. So if that's what you're doing, just make sure you try to get your sleep in there and some rest. But, I know how it is for some of us out there. There's long days. But write down the amount of time you can realistically work per day and just start crossing out how much time. So let's say you've got the baby and that's going to take 4 hours. Okay, and are you homeschooling? Okay, how many hours does that take per kid a day? Then you've got meals. How long is it going to take to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner each day? And how long does the cleanup take? Block out all of that time in the day, and then you will see how realistic or unrealistic all of your priorities and activities that you're trying to get done each day are. And it kind of helps put things in perspective and can help you prioritize a little bit better, and maybe even cut some things out if that's what you need to do. So what happens when you've cut everything out that you can possibly cut out, and you're only taking care of the priorities, and it still feels like it's not enough? Things are still slipping through the cracks. We are going to talk about this in the second half of this series. I have an extra special devotional and a little Bible study that I created that I think is going to help you. So be sure to look in the description below and at the end of this video for part 2. I will see you there.